Okay, so in Weekly Muse, there was this very large acquisition that happened, but we're not going to talk about that right now. Instead, we're going to be talking about the folks over at, I believe it was Techland, who are creating Dying Light 2, and a very interesting statement that they had made that got attention for reasons that you don't normally associate with getting the attention. So they basically, Techland came out, the developers of Dying Light 2, and basically said that the game is 500 hours long.
Yeah, you had mentioned that, and I was like, that's a lot of hours to put into a game.
Especially if you had played the original Dying Light and realized that was not 500 hours long. No. And I had played it, and I can tell you that 40 or 50 hours, that would make sense. You could do a lot, most of everything in the game in that time. 500 hours seemed long, and the community kind of lost their minds, not in the, oh my god, look at how much content there is, but, oh, that's too much. In that kind of, I don't think I want this game to be 500 hours long. Mostly because I got the impression people were thinking that this feels like there's going to be a lot of filler if that's the case.
Yeah, 500 hours is a lot of game. And if it was, hey, the campaign or main story takes 500 hours, no thank you.
No, because if you have a main campaign that takes 500 hours, that's like epic series, like television series, back to back to back to back. You know, an 8-season long television show is not that many hours to do storyline. Yeah. So I don't know about that. So what they had to do, they came out to do a clarification. And the way they clarified it, and they made a graphic for it so that it would make it easy to understand, is...
Which you're probably going to throw up on the screen.
I will be throwing it up on the screen if you're watching this, but I'm also going to read it from Dying Light Game on Twitter. We wanted to clarify our recent communication about the amount of hours required to complete the game. Dying Light 2 Stay Human is designed for players with different gameplay styles and preferences to explore the world how they see fit. Hashtag Dying Light 2. And then they have a graphic, and they show, basically, if I pull up the actual thing, that the time needed to complete the main storyline is 20 hours. Okay. The time needed to finish the main story and all of the side quests, it would be 80. And then the time needed to max out the game, all main and side quests, choices and endings, checking every place on the map, every dialogue, and finding every collectible would be the 500 hours. And I'm assuming that also means you'd have to be through multiple playthroughs if there are different choices and endings that you would have to go through. So
sure.
So that's helpful. That's
a bit different than just saying we've got 500 hours in the game and saying, here's a breakdown of why we say there's 500 hours, because, yeah, it's not all story, it's just, if you include everything you can do in the game.
Yeah, it would be very helpful to clarify that. It did get me to thinking about the idea of game length, which we've talked about occasionally on the show, but I mean, you can kind of see that there's a big disparity between a 20-hour main storyline and a 500-hour I do everything in the game. There's a bit of a difference there.
There's just a little bit of a magnitude difference between 20 and 500.
Just a little bit. And it's not that there aren't games that you could spend 500 hours playing. I think we can both agree that there have been.
Yeah, and I'm sure there are gamers who spend more than 500 hours in their favorite shooters.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think the thing is that for single-player games that are like the open-world settings, you might assume a few things about like your overall game length. I think, like for a lot of the open worlds, not necessarily the RPGs, but just open-world settings, I think they usually assume that it's going to be around 40 or 50 hours. That seems to be right around the amount of time that you figure you're going to be spending with it. If you are an Assassin's Creed, you might end up trying to stretch that a lot more. I think, when I was playing Odyssey, noting that I hadn't even looked at certain parts of the map, I was already about 80 or 90 hours in.
Yeah.
And then Valhalla was apparently even larger.
Yeah.
With more stuff. But I think the difference is, and we're getting to the point where people live kind of hectic lives, and we're always busy, we're always moving around and everything, and so 500 hours, when you were a kid, it was like, oh, this is my week, my year, this is great. Nowadays, it's kind of like, I'd kind of like to finish or get to the good stuff at some point, please.
Yeah, it's a bit different than when we were kids playing games and we could just do whatever. But now, as I believe most of us are probably adults, either between college age or mid-30s, who listen to this and are around, we've got things going on.
Yeah.
Like work or school or children or other things that we can't just play a game for 500 hours, like for a main story. And if we look at that, we go, that's a lot. I don't think I can commit to that.
Yeah, gone are the days where I was able to have my friend come over and we would just play Morrowind for 11 hours straight.
I mean, I would like to be able to maybe play a game for that long, but at the same time, I don't think my body would like that anymore.
No, and the thing about it is that back in those days, you could do that, and then you'd be ready to do it again, like, the next day.
Oh, yeah.
These days, you have to, like, schedule that. You have to arrange time so that you can do that, and good luck.
Or you have to be a streamer.
Or you have to be a streamer. That's why.
And you have to be making money doing it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Because then it's a job. But then you have to make the game your job in order for this to make sense to play.
Yeah.
But anyway, and there's probably going to be a streamer that says, we're going to try that 500-hour Dying Light 2 challenge. It's going to be the 500-hour day. Good luck for you. I hope that works out. The completionist. If Gerard has to do Dying Light 2, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Gerard. But anyway, yeah, 20-hour I can see. An 80-hour is a lot. That is actually still pretty weighty just to do side quests in the main story. 500 hours is I'm a fan of the original Dying Light. I'll be interested. I want to play Dying Light 2, but no. That is too much. That is too many of the hours. And I think the impression people got initially, and what I saw when I first read that, was that sounds like it's going to be mostly filler content. Because a lot of games, when they start boasting about the hundreds and hundreds of hours that they have, it's not really that there's hundreds and hundreds of hours of content. There's hundreds of hours of fetch quests and filler things and randomized quest lines and events.
Yeah,
and
those
stuff.
Radiant quests, not as fun.
Yeah, the Radiant quests that come into the game. Oh, there's another settlement that needs your help. Thanks,
Yes.
Preston. How many of these do you have? As many as you possibly want. Damn it.
I hope you include a small voice, small clip of that line
God.
from the video in there really quick.
Oh, yeah.
In the video portion.
Another settlement has sent word that they need our help. I'll mark it on your map. Go find out what they need. You could use more settlements supporting our cause.
I don't really think that 500 hours is necessary. Frankly, unless you have really put a lot of actual stuff in the game, and it's not necessarily just randomly generated quests, 100 seems perfectly reasonable. Like, they're saying 80. If 80 was, like, literally to do everything in the game, I think I'd be good with that.
Yeah.
Because there's a certain framework here. I don't mind getting more bang for my buck, but there's a point where it seems like the bang is not really so much of a bang. These are not necessarily hours I'm going to be enjoying, but hours I have to slog through to get to the good stuff.
Right.
And therefore, it doesn't feel like a game anymore. It feels like a series of chores to get to the actual game part. So, I think that's why there was pushback that maybe Techland probably did not expect to have by announcing how long their game was.
Yeah, probably not.
Yeah. Have you had any experiences with games that were either too long or really could have been fleshed out more?
Yeah, plenty. I can't think of a specific one offhand, but there are plenty of games I have played that I just don't finish.
Yeah.
I think we've mentioned it before. I have severe gaming ADHD. I go from one game to another game fairly often, unless one grabs my attention for an extended amount of time, and then I get bored a little bit and play something else, and then I go back and forth between games.
Sure. The thing about it is you're probably not alone, because in terms of the actual percentage of gamers that actually finish games, by and large, it's usually a fairly small percentage. Like, from the people that pick it up and actually play it to the people that complete it, it's usually only 10% or something like that.
Well, back when I had a console, I used to actually play games, because I mostly played the JRPGs on the PS2 era, you know.
Sure.
So I would get, like, my Final Fantasy X or my .hack, and I would play the game, and I'd complete the game, and I'd, put 300 hours into Final Fantasy X on my PS2.
Sure.
And then, I'd play the games to completion, but that's part of also because those games pull you through the game, which is, I think, what we disagree on, why you don't like JRPGs, and I do. But with, I think, the size of our gaming libraries these days, and just the way games are made now as opposed to back 16 years ago, it's just that there's so much more going on in the game aside from the main story that it just pulls you in so many directions. Like Skyrim, for instance. I love Skyrim. Skyrim's fun. I enjoy it. They go, all right, cool. You got out of the cave. Have fun.
Yeah, they'll give you a quest marker for, like, the main quest, and say, there's the direction that you technically should go if you want to start the main quest.
Right.
But it is completely open, so you...
And I believe it took me hundreds of hours of actual playtime in Skyrim to finally go, all right, I'm going to finish the main quest and the main side quest.
Yes.
Or, sorry, the story A and story B, which are the Dragonborn aspect, killing killing Alduin. And then the other one is the Civil War.
Yeah, the Stormcloaks and the Imperials,
Yeah, so I was like, I'm going to make a character, I'm going to complete these two main quests, and so I can actually complete what I consider the main story of Skyrim.
Yeah.
Fallout 4, I have not completed the main story still. I do not care about my son, Sean.
And most people didn't. And most people probably, spoiler alert for a 6 or 7 year old game, might have just gone against him and killed him off. Actually.
Yeah, I mean, I do know obviously. I've seen enough playthroughs and videos with it.
Most people know.
A lot of Mitten Squad, but
and I have tried all 4 of the endings for 4.
And it's just
I play the 4 endings. So.
With the games like that, I go, okay, cool. I don't care about this main story. It doesn't grab my attention. Yeah. So I go off and do other things.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then there's other games for me, like Elite Dangerous, which, again, I am a long-term fan of, which I have over 700 hours of in the game, but it's an open world, not open world, open universe fucking sandbox, where there's not a main story to drive me. It's because I like to explore. It's because I enjoy doing the things in the game.
Sure. Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I've had a lot of games, and like a lot of, I guess maybe you'd call them the cozy games, but like a Stardew Valley, I probably have a good 150 hours playing Stardew Valley. Even though the main quest is done after like season 2. Like after you're done with the second like season in the game, your grandfather comes back and basically says, "Oh, I'm so proud of you, and here's what you accomplished, and yippee skippy." But that doesn't mean you can't keep playing for 10 years, 20 years, however in game that you want. So I've had those situations before, maybe it is because it's just so open-ended and you just keep going, now I need to get more crops. Eventually it just becomes an industrial sim at that point, where you just, like, how much ancient fruit wine can I produce in a season?
Right.
A lot.
It's a challenge for yourself at that point.
Yeah, you're making your own fun at that point. The storyline has been over. They actually did put in more endgame content that I haven't even seen yet, because I haven't been back to it, but there is more of like an ending story quest. But games like that, I occasionally would play longer than they normally would assume. But for a Dying Light or any of those open world games, I think after 50 hours or so, I'm not necessarily as engaged with it. I think I've crafted everything. I've pretty much gotten as far up in my leveling as I want, and the mechanics start to get repetitive by the time you get there. There's only so many iterations. A lot of Ubisoft games fall into that for me. I like to play around with them, and I like to see everything that they have. But there's only so many times that you can like kick somebody, do the Spartan kick off of a cliff, and just kick them off into the sunset before you just kind of go, okay, I'm bored now.
Right. I have noticed that with the Ubisoft games lately. They're very much reskins of the same thing.
Yeah.
Which is, I think, is a common complaint.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's not a bad formula. It works. It's fun.
That's why they keep doing it.
Yeah, and it sells, but it does start getting to feel samey. Even with me playing Watch Dogs Legion recently, I'm going, man, this seems kind of like I'm playing Valhalla, but in modern day, and there's guns and drones.
Yeah.
Like, the setting is still cool. I still enjoy that, and I think the story is interesting, having not played any of the other Watchdog games. But yeah, I'm just kind of like, okay, it's one of those open world, kill people, stealth, or whatever games. Okay.
Yeah, when I get around to playing it, we'll have to have a conversation, because I did play the previous two.
Okay.
But the one thing that I liked about Watch Dogs that kept it a little bit fresh, the mechanics in there, is the whole hacking part of it.
Right.
Where every time you get to a facility, it's like, what shall I hack today?
I don't know what the hacking was like before, but now it's just kind of you push a button.
Yeah, you do the buttons. Can you still like call in raids and stuff on the facilities and...
Maybe with different. I haven't unlocked all the different types of characters you can play yet. Well, you can recruit all sorts of characters. I think I've got like 9, 10, or 11.
Well, keep an eye out, because
I can summon drones.
You can summon drones. Yeah. The thing is that like you would go up to facilities in like the second one that had it more, but you could call in either the police to say that there's like something going on at this facility, or you could call in enemy gangs to the facilities.
Well, I can get like a hooligan, and I can make people in the area start being crazy or whatever.
Yeah.
Like a professional football hooligan.
And exploding gas cans and like setting off tripwires and taking over turrets at some point.
Yeah, stuff like that. And then I don't know if I can call in the police. We're kind of the police aren't really on our side in this game.
No, and they usually aren't. But I had a lot of occasions in the Watch Dogs at least where it was just literally, I stay outside the facility, I hack into the cameras, I get to the camera that looks the best, and then I start targeting certain people that are in the facility that are, armed guards and stuff, and say, put out a police warrant for that person. And
I can't do that.
Yeah, police come in and they have to, and then they get into a giant firefight because now the other guards want to go, okay, put out a gang hit on this person now. And then the gangs come in while the police are there. So now everybody's firing. And what I would do is I would just stay out, just watch everything on the cams in my drone, and just start exploding things, and there's electric fields and everything. And by the time I was done, everybody, like the police leave, the gangs leave, everybody's dead, and I just waltz into the facility and just kind of go, I shall take everything now, and I just start taking everything.
Yeah.
There's always something in Ubisoft games where it's like, okay, that's something I haven't necessarily seen before, but yeah, even then, you start to kind of like go, well, I know what I'm doing for every single encounter.
Yeah.
This is just what I'm doing. And personally, I have played games that are 3 hours long. I would not want them to be longer. There's just certain, especially narrative games, I wouldn't want to see them longer than the 3 or 5 hours that they are.
Right.
And I'm perfectly fine with that. It depends on what kind of game you're showing, because if like What Remains of Edith Finch was more than 2 or 3 hours long, I would feel like the pacing was completely wrong for the game, and I wouldn't really get as much out of the story. So, but yeah, 500 hours Dying Light 2, I'm kind of glad I don't have to do that.